Hello, this vid is called Blood River to Blackwater. Now, Blood River was a battle between the Boers and the Zulu, but it was also a battle where the Boers were allied to another faction of the Zulu, Dingan. If anyone's familiar with South African history or the book Washing of the Spears, then they will know this. Now, in that fierce confrontation, a small number, a few hundred Boers, held off one faction of the Zulu. But yet, Dingan, who was leader of the faction that the Boers supported, recognised them. And he recognised them by treaty in writing. And that treaty was later also recognised by the British, and then in 1994 was recognised by the UN. If all those people can recognise that the fact that the Boers were not only part of South Africa, but were the people who started South Africa, being that they arrived in 1652 before the Zulu or the Khoisan, then why cannot Julius Malema? Why is Julius Malema singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer"? The people who are making the food in South Africa. Surely if we say that this is a war about Boer identity versus Julius Malema's doctrine, then we've already lost, because it's a paradox. We've simply gone and made it about one person, the murderer of Eugene TerrerBlanche. Now, as I said before, I don't agree with Eugene TerrerBlanche. Just simply upset sad for his family that he had been murdered in such a way, massacred, because these killings are being done in a particular way in the wider scope of farm murders in South Africa. Ironically, Eugene TerrerBlanche's murder may not have been part of that. It may not have been politically motivated, but the others certainly are. It would be bad enough if they used firearms. Why are their supporters ritually torturing and raping and killing Boer farmers in such a way? So many thousands have died since 1994. But let's look at the Bantu people. They are losing 33,000 people a year now. Surely that they must see that this is not a battle between black and white, but about right and wrong. When I mention Blood River to Blackwater, what I mean is Blackwater private security, because I think that's where we are at the moment. I would like South Africa to be at peace and to have a Boer independent republic on a social democratic model such as Europe, and have a customs union such as Europe. But then again, I am a European. Perhaps I do not fully understand Africa in all of its nuances, or maybe it's much more simple than that. Simply that people like Julius Malema and Jacob Zuma are either incompetent, or their incompetence is so far gone that it is evil personified. When Julius Malema goes to ask for agricultural assistance from the blood-drenched hand of Zimbabwe's dictator, Robert Mugabe, who seized farms, burned people alive with tyres, black and white, then surely we must ask, are we living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare where in South Africa some are more equal than others? We must now think about cooperative defence. We must think about cooperatives in terms of business, to make every South African who will stand for rationality and democracy against this wave of violence a partner in that. We must build something, because by the death of Eugene TerrerBlanche, the extremists on both sides have shifted it basically back to a Eugene TerrerBlanche versus Julius Malema destructive cycle. Of course that's what they want it to be, because like sharks, they want those waters which they can swim in, and that is violence and destruction. Now, any cooperative defence, I would say, has to be based firmly in the civil sector. I cannot give, in terms of the fact that it is YouTube, and I cannot tell people to go and do military patrols or anything like that. But I would say that you need to make a cellular structure like wiki-leaks have, who are coordinating a intelligence-based campaign through the medium of journalism, because there has been a media blackout basically, or just treating South Africa as though it's another Rwanda. But I think the deaths of thousands of people is an important issue. It should be covered in the media. And if the media isn't going to do it, then we have to do it. We have to make sure that people know that 40, 50 people are dying every day in South Africa, that rape is epidemic, that AIDS is epidemic. Instead of FIFA talking about saying people should go to the World Cup and Jacob Zuma should be invited to see Gordon Brown and Angela Merkel to make this happen, they should be saying don't go to the World Cup because you will be raped, tortured and murdered. We cannot speak about this in England. Why? Because you've got Thatcherite idiots in the BNP going around saying it's trying to make a race war in Britain. So it's very difficult for us. Those same Thatcherites backed and armed the ANC so they could get cheap mining contracts. So if anyone's watching this in Britain, don't vote Conservative. Alright, they're a bunch of traitors. If anybody is interested in the cooperative movement as a basis for this, then we should really start to develop links through the private security companies with intelligence, people who are willing in the intelligence agencies in Europe, Britain, and also we must think about how to train young people to be ready to defend themselves and to farm and other things. This generation of South Africans is leaving South Africa more than the older generation who've been conscripted. And to be honest, as an outlander living in Europe safely, I cannot blame them. But we must encourage people to invest in South Africa, as I said, and make a wall of non-connections around the ANC, economically and politically. As I said before in my vids on economic anti-terrorism versus Julius Malema and the ANC. Now, another way to do this would be to have to make the infrastructure of South Africa much less conducive to terrorism by having defensive hamlets, such as the kibbutz system, which was developed in Israel, where students were being trained to farm, to build roads, as security personnel. And also, in terms of the journalistic and intelligence gathering, women are extremely important, because women can breach through the racial divide because they're less considered a threat by such terrorist organisations as the ANC Youth League, I would say. And particularly important would be African women who are educated and understand that the Western way of life is going to provide more material wealth to their children and better survival for their children than the apocalyptic scenario that Julius Malema and Robert Mugabe offer South Africa, which is to drive it back to being a Rwanda type situation. Using firearms and other such things is not going to work. Okay, we must be non-violent, we must be rational, and we must be democratic. I appeal for calm in South Africa, and I might be doing another vid on cooperative defence. Thank you.